when you went back, did you find out why birds are so angry?
I was not playing Angry Birds in grad school, no. But I did have a one-legged scrub jay named Stumpy, who was very angry. This Stumpy was a very angry bird. I mean, scrub jays aren't necessarily the friendliest birds to begin with, but this one was particularly neurotic and angry. Very, very cute, though. Cute scrub jay.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think that, so basically the trajectory, I completed my degree. I finished that up. I ended up in a laboratory with very, supportive mentors, very supportive professors who I said, I'm not going to continue in academia. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, when I get my degree, I'm going to be done. And I'm going into communications. And they thought that was a great idea. So then that's a really important thing to have the professors you work for support whatever your goals are. Otherwise, it's a very difficult experience. It's difficult as it is, but this time it's like difficult squared.
Right.
So I did that. I started getting into podcasting and looking around more at that community. I met some people doing video podcasting here in San Francisco. I did a video podcast with someone from the This Week in Tech community, Alex Lindsay. He produces MacBreak Weekly and some other programming with the Pixel Core. And we did food science back in 2007, I think is when it was, food science, and that started kind of my video career, and that's what got me going there. From there, I started, I got some work with a company here called Revision 3. I worked on a program called Pop Siren, doing a segment called Rad Science, where I did science demonstrations. I worked, and then I started talking to the Science Channel and did some work with the Science Channel. Now I'm working in a more limited aspect. I've got a new baby, so I'm
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be a mom.
Yay.
Yeah, and I'm doing This Week in Science still, and my program, Dr. Kiki's Science Hour, with the This Week in Tech network. And yeah, I love doing it. I love all this stuff. It's really fun.
So as you kind of moved into talking about all sorts of different areas of science, I mean, you mentioned kind of the program that taught you about science communication. Do you have any tips for learning about kind of many different types of sciences kind of intelligently? What sources do you use? How can you tell sorry, I'm throwing a bunch of questions at you, but all kind of the same question. It's, when you get outside of something that you specialize in, what's your learning curve like, and how are you able to discuss all of these different sciences intelligently?
Yeah. So it's difficult. I mean, at this point, I've been looking into other sciences for, a good long time now. Like I said, it's over 10 years that I've been doing This Week in Science. This Week in Science is a general science news program. So in the first couple of years, when there was a story about quantum physics or, particle physics with particle accelerators or something, I'm pulling from physics, astrophysics, particle physics, cosmology. These were not my areas in college, right?
Right.
I was biology. I had some physics, electrical physics, and a lot of chemistry through the physiology coursework. All of our nerves are electrochemical in their basis. So electricity and the physics of that are very similar to what's going on in wiring for electrical engineering. A lot of similar principles there. So the basics of physics I kind of had, but when you get into quantum stuff, it's a whole new ballgame. So the first couple of years, that was that was difficult, and I started a lot of extra reading, basically. Sitting down, I'd ask questions. Okay, what's going on in this story, and, what don't I know? What areas should I be going to? I started reading a lot of popular science books by physicists. So there are several physicists who have tried to explain what goes on in physics. Brian Greene being one, Sean Carroll another, Leonard Susskind. There are many physicists that I'm not even going to name because I can't remember all their names, but all of the popular books that they've written for a general audience are still really jam-packed full of information. And so reading a lot of those books helps get a better understanding of what's going on. I've talked to a lot of people as well. So when I don't know something, it's great to call somebody up and be like, do you want to have an interview? I'd love to have you on my show. There's a story. I don't get it. I figured you can understand it and explain it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So that's one good thing is, I don't tie myself to, I have to be the person to explain this on the air for a particular show. Sometimes if I know something and I feel comfortable with it, then, I'll run with it. But yeah, when you don't know something, I find it's, just great to go to people who do and start asking questions. If you are, writing a story, if you are, say that you're not just doing an interview and talking to somebody and then going to be giving their words verbatim. So you have to come up with your own version of what, of how things work. Going to experts and talking to them is definitely where you start. Go to the primary literature, find names of people who have published lots of stuff in that area, and then send them an email. Find out if they have time to answer a few questions. A lot of scientists are pretty open to answering questions, especially in their area of expertise. And in terms of places online or, libraries used to be amazing places to go. Once upon a time, there were these buildings with books. No, I'm kidding. But libraries are great. There are lots of books, and sitting down in an aisle and just pulling books off of a shelf and starting to go through them and getting notes is great. Evernote is this amazing application, if you don't know about it, for filing information. So documents, things that you want to read, things that you have read, just starting files on different subjects and pulling websites from online, documents from, from magazines or from books, scanning pages. I found Evernote within the last couple of years, and it's amazing. It's really a lifesaver in terms of organizing information. And then cool websites that I like to go for just science news and good explanations. There are some kind of press release websites. So Phys.org is one that has a lot of good stories. ScienceDaily.com is another that has lots of interesting sciencey stories. But those websites are press release websites. So they've been, these are stories that have been written by press officers, and they're not always necessarily accurate, or they don't necessarily give you all the information, but they're a place to start. If you're going to be writing a story about something, you don't want to bias your approach to the story too much by relying on other people's headlines or on the slant that they've taken to writing it. And if you're looking at a press release, that's an organization who wants to get a certain idea out in a particular way. And so they've written it, they've crafted their document in a very specific way. And so you just have to be aware of that and not just take it at face value. Then there are the actual media outlets. So you can go to places like Nature Science. They have front-facing news sites that are fairly well written by science writers. New Scientist is really fun. They kind of take a futuristic slant on things, kind of a little sensationalist at times, but fun. Then there's the Discovery or Discover.com. They've got good stories. Scientific American. Just kind of, they're the old standbys. Every Tuesday, the New York Times has an amazing science section with some really good writing in it. And then there are the blogs, and the blogs are really interesting because more and more scientists are actually getting into writing about science, and whether or not it's science that they're doing in their lab or whether they're reflecting on articles that they've read. There's some very interesting writing out there, and there's a lot of it. So there's Science Blogs, which is one of the first places with just lots of great science blogs on. And that's put together by Seed Magazine, funded by Seed Magazine. And then like Discover and Scientific American, they have blog networks. Scientific American just launched their blog network, and they've got some really great writers in their fold. Some of my favorite bloggers, Ed Young, I think, what's his last name? His first name's Ed, but Not Exactly Rocket Science is his blog, and it's just a fabulous blog. He's a general science writer. He writes about all sorts of stuff. And my friend Phil Plait, the Bad Astronomer, he's a skeptic as well. He does some really great writing on his blog, which is in the Discover Network. And then I think Sean Carroll for physics, he's also in the Discover Network, and his blog is called Cosmic Variance, I think. I think it's called Cosmic Variance. And then there's Carl Zimmer, who kind of started at the Loom. He does evolutionary writing, and when he started at New York Times, his blog is called The Loom. And I think that's also at Discover. A lot of good ones at Discover.
Right. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So you talked about not taking something, especially a press release, at face value. Where do you go from there? Do you go to the original research, or do you start to Google the subject and just get a sense of, like, what's the next step so that you don't take it at face value, so that you can kind of verify what you're reading? Or the next step is I do both of those things, actually. So going to the original research is always, if you have access to the article, and that's one of the difficulties in this day and age, is actually getting access. Right. Because a lot of scientific writing is behind a paywall. But that's the next step, is I will go to the original article, try and find out what was said in that. If I can't get behind the paywall, if I can't actually get to the article itself, I'll at least try and read the abstract. And then I start looking at what other people have written. Because if I can't get to the article, chances are there's somebody with a blog out there who has gotten to the article and has written something about it that's not just pulling from the press release. Right. So, and then that's the big thing, is you do the Google search and you look at all the different places it's been written up, and it's amazing how many places it pulls from the press release. And I mean, even on This Week in Science, very often I'll read quotes. I will take information from the press releases themselves, because they're easy. It's very easy to pull from. But it's the original thought that is the most beneficial, and what you really want to try and get out of it.